There's a reason loud people often look busy and quiet people often look dangerous. Loudness creates presence, but silence creates pressure. When someone talks too much, they reveal too much. Their opinions, their intentions, their insecurities, their next move. Silence does the opposite. Silence keeps information sealed. It makes people work to understand you, and that alone changes the balance of power. We live in a culture that rewards visibility. Post more, say more, prove more, react faster, explain yourself before anyone misunderstands you. But the person who says less is often the person who sees more. They are not rushing to fill the space, so they notice what others are trying to hide. They hear hesitation in a sentence. They catch contradiction in a story. They sense when someone is performing confidence instead of possessing it. And because they are not constantly broadcasting their own inner world, they do not hand the room a map to their weaknesses. That is the first advantage of silence. It is not emptiness, it is privacy. And privacy is power when everyone else is busy exposing themselves for free. Most people think silence is passive. It is not. Silence is selective. It is disciplined. It is the decision not to waste energy on every impulse that passes through your head. That matters because attention is finite, and attention is where life goes. Every time you explain yourself to people who were never trying to understand you, you spend energy you never get back. Every time you defend every choice, you train the world to expect access. Every time you answer too quickly, you surrender the chance to think. Silence interrupts that pattern. It creates a gap between stimulus and response. In that gap, you regain control. You stop being dragged by the moment and start choosing your moment. That is why silence feels uncomfortable at first. It removes the instant reward of being seen, being praised, being validated. And for a lot of people, that reward is addictive. They talk to be noticed. They explain to be forgiven. They reveal to be liked. But the cost is that the more you feed the need for external approval, the less you trust your own internal compass. Silence forces that trust to grow back. It makes you sit with uncertainty long enough to discover what you actually think. It makes you tolerate not being instantly understood. And strangely, that is where strength starts. Because a person who can remain silent without panicking is no longer dependent on the room to tell them who they are. They can observe instead of performing. They can calculate instead of reacting. They can wait instead of begging. And waiting, when done correctly, is not weakness. It is leverage. There is another reason silence matters. It protects your motivation. The more you talk about what you plan to do, the easier it becomes to feel as if you have already done something. The brain loves the emotional relief of announcement. I'm going to start. I'm working on it. This is my year. I have a big idea. Saying it out loud creates a small hit of satisfaction. It feels like movement, but it is often just substitution. You borrowed the feeling of progress without earning the result. Silence blocks that leak. It keeps your energy inside the work instead of letting it escape through language. That is why people who are actually building something serious tend to speak carefully. They are not secretive for the sake of drama. They understand that momentum is fragile. 1,000 little conversations can turn ambition into theater, and theater feels productive right up until nothing is left except the performance. Silence also helps in conflict. When you are too eager to explain yourself, you often end up arguing from fear. You say too much. You overcorrect. You hand your opponent more material than they had before. Silence changes the rhythm. It gives your words weight. It makes you harder to bait. It lets other people reveal themselves while you stay grounded. That is why quiet people can seem intimidating. They are not easy to manipulate because they are not desperate to fill every silence with reassurance. They can let a question hang. They can let someone's inconsistency sit in the room. They do not rush to rescue a conversation that is already collapsing under its own dishonesty. And in a world where everyone is scrambling to be the loudest voice, the person who can sit still, watch, and speak only when necessary often has the strongest position of all. But silence is only an advantage when it is intentional. Silence born from fear is not power. Silence born from shame is not strategy. If you go quiet because you are afraid of rejection, afraid of conflict, afraid of being seen, that is not competitive advantage. That is hiding. The difference is everything. Strategic silence is chosen. It has direction. It is not about disappearing. It is about reserving force. It is the discipline of not spending your words where they will be wasted. It is knowing when a conversation is useful and when it is just emotional leakage. It is understanding that not every opinion deserves a response, not every challenge deserves a defense, and not every room deserves your full disclosure. The loudest person in the room often feels strong because they are visible, but visibility is not the same as strength. Sometimes it is just exposure. The quiet person, on the other hand, can move through the same room with less drag, less need to prove, less need to impress, less need to win every exchange. That freedom changes how they think, how they work, and how they are perceived. People lean in when they cannot easily predict you. They pay attention when you do not donate your thoughts carelessly. They respect pauses when your causes are rare. And over time, that restraint becomes a kind of authority, not because you forced it, but because you withheld what everyone else gave away too freely. So if you want the competitive advantage of silence, stop using your words as a reflex. Stop narrating every dream before it has teeth. Stop explaining every boundary to people committed to ignoring it. Stop rewarding every impulse with an audience. Let your actions speak first. Let your silence guard the parts of you that need room to grow. The people who matter will understand eventually. The people who only wanted easy access will leave, and that will tell you something important. Silence does not just protect your future, it reveals who is actually capable of needing you there. Silence also changes how people measure you. When you do not spill everything at once, people cannot easily categorize you. They do not know whether you are confident, indifferent, careful, or calculating. That uncertainty works in your favor. It makes people slow down. It makes them listen closer. And more importantly, it keeps your inner life from becoming public property. A lot of people confuse openness with weakness and secrecy with manipulation, but those are not the same thing. You do not owe the world instant access to your thoughts just because the world is noisy. In fact, some of the best decisions are made in silence, precisely because silence removes social pressure. No performance, no audience, no impulsive need to sound smart, just clarity. And clarity is rare when everyone is trying to be heard. That is why silence is more than restraint. It is a filter. It filters out noise, weakens impulse, and protects intention. And once you learn how to use it properly, you stop reacting like someone who needs permission and start moving like someone who already has it.